So for this webcast, we will be doing a brief presentation of some of the great features and uses of Navisworks. Then we will actually launch the software and try to do some live demonstration of some of my favorite features and do a live look at the Clash Detective from scratch. All right. Here is a closer look at the agenda for today. I will start off with a brief overview of the software and what it is big picture wise. Then we will drill in a little further and discuss some major points of discussion, like 3 different versions of Navisworks. There is Freedom, Simulate, and Manage. So I will explain the difference in those 3 flavors of the software. We will then discuss what file types can be used in Navisworks, plus the 3 different file types native to Navisworks. Then we will talk about all of the great features in the software and, of course, an extensive look at the Clash Detective tool. The last few webcasts I did ran long and I cut short the Q&A. So I will try to do a little better today and leave plenty of time for that. All right, 1 second here. So at the most basic level, Navisworks can be thought of as the universal tool to take models from all trades and combine them into a single model. Once you have models from all sorts of different trades combined into one file, this opens the door for all sorts of useful applications like review, markup, animator, quantification, scripting, timeliner, rendering, and of course, the Clash Detective. So there are 3 types of Navisworks. The first one is Navisworks Freedom. It is free and anyone can download it. It is essentially just a viewer. So that means it can't open all types of Navisworks files. It can only open NWD files. This will make a little more sense once I discuss the different file types on the next slide. With Navisworks Simulate, you get all the features except the Clash Detective. And that brings us to Navisworks Manage, which is the full version, and it comes with the AEC collection. I believe Simulate comes with AEC collection as well, but you might as well just install Manage, and that is what we will be using in today's webcast. So the first file type you need to know is the NWC or .nwc. This is also called a Navisworks cache file, and that is what Navisworks is reading when you open a Revit, AutoCAD, or Inventor file in Navis. Even if you open the file natively, so even if you open the Revit or AutoCAD file natively within Navis, the software converts it to an NWC, and that is what the software is actually reading. If you ever saw an NWC file next to one of your design project files and you didn't remember creating it, my guess is that it was opened in Navisworks at some point, and that is why that file is there. Now, the next file type is a NWF, and I tend to think of this as my working file or master file where I store all of my markups, viewpoints, clashes, animations, and so on and so forth. This will also save the references to the other files you were working with, whether they are NWC, DWG, RVT, NWD. So all of these files will be linked as references. So if your file paths are up to date and those files update, you can refresh and they will reload. Now, file size will be very small on an NWF since everything is really referenced, nothing is embedded into the file. Now, that brings me to the NWD. So what's the use of an NWD file? Well, it can be thought of as a completed project and mostly used when the native CAD files are no longer subject to change. And the only time I typically use NWD is if I need to send the file to someone who needs to view the file in Navisworks Freedom. If you are used to AutoCAD terminology, then I would say this is comparable to a bound XREF, since all the files will be embedded into one. So therefore, the file size is typically a little bigger with these. Okay, so now that we understand the native file types, let's see what other files it can work with and how it applies to the first feature I want to discuss. The first one I would like to discuss here is the fact that you can take models from all different trades and combine them into one file in the form of a consolidated model. The beauty of this is that you can have the architects, MEP engineers providing Revit models, the civil engineer working in AutoCAD Civil 3D, structural engineer working in advanced steel, and maybe you have an HVAC or other manufacturer on board providing inventor files. That is just one example. You can see on the screen a short list of some of the common file types that are supported. You might notice that there are many on here that are not even created from Autodesk design applications. So while you are looking this list over, the fact that you can create a consolidated model from all different kinds of formats is actually a really big deal. For example, if I was working in, let's say, AutoCAD or another predominantly 2D application, it might be hard or impossible for me to import or XREF a Revit or other 3D model. Now, you might be sitting here thinking, well, my consultants and I are all working in the same application. Why would we need Navis when we can easily see all the models at any time? Well, in that case, these next features we're going to show will help clear that up a little bit. So once we have our consolidated model into a single file and we can see all the trades together, we can then start using some of the review tools. In this one shot on the screen, I used the walkthrough tool to find a view I liked, and then saved the camera location for easy retrieval at my leisure. I did not use the section tool for this one, but I did utilize the full render mode, which is the default. It displays the materials, textures, lights, reflections, and shadows. You would think that having this much detail would make it choppy during navigation, but it is extremely smooth. Other visual styles include hidden line, wireframe, and shaded. All right. In addition, I changed the signage to blue so it could be better seen in this view using the override appearance tool. And I also hid the foundation, which was part of the structural model, because I did not need it for this particular view. So one of the other great things about Navisworks is the ability to leverage your BIM content. Typically, when you open a file in a piece of software other than its native design application, there will be some data loss. However, that couldn't be further from reality with Navis. In fact, it's almost the opposite, because the ability to access that information is what will allow us to utilize some of the advanced features, plus the ability to add user-defined properties. The image on the left shows how I can easily examine object properties. I think I have a few chairs selected, and I've got all the properties from the Revit model listed. Another helpful tool here is the ability to easily create search sets based on the object properties. For example, the image on the right shows that maybe I want to create a search set that will find and select all the chairs in the model, but only on the first floor. I can easily do that and save the search for later use. I now have the benefit of that search set being updated to capture any changes if the source model is reloaded with changes at some point in the future. So if a chair got added or removed, all those updates will show up in my search set. So you're able to leverage data in some very meaningful ways. All right. In addition to the review tools I just mentioned, sometimes you need to find a quick dimension or markup of view. You can then create a separate viewpoint with the red line clouds, lines, arrows, or even text to share with appropriate team members. And here's just a couple examples. There's also a tags and comments feature, which is a little more sophisticated because you can add a numbered tag to the model and then review any comments associated to the tag, as well as whoever added or edited the comment, the date added, and status, including new, active, approved, or resolved. So I would say all the features in the last few slides are pretty neat, but somewhat standard. We are now going to look at the features that really take your workflows to the next level. For these, it probably makes a little more sense to switch over to the software itself. We'll first take a look at hyperlinks. where you can link to a website or a document on your network. So I'll show you a couple use cases for that. And then we'll look at the animator, one of my personal favorites, where you can take a bunch of saved views and have the software use them to create a seamless walk or fly through. With the animator, you can also apply motion to modeled objects in a scene. Whether it's showing a door open or maybe even showing a large piece of equipment or truck moving around the model. And then the scripter allows us to run an animation with the click of a keyboard button or other action. And that's going to be very useful for client presentations, as you will see. Then the timeliner, which is awesome for construction simulations. And then, of course, we'll do an extensive look at the clash detective. All right, so let's kind of switch back over to the software here. So here's my model. And let's just kind of familiarize ourselves with it. So in our selection tree, you can see the models that I've linked in here. Of course, we've got Mario to help us out today, our favorite plumbing consultant. So we've got our main Revit model here listed. We can select it, and maybe I'll just hide it to show you what else is in here. We've got a light MEP model, and we've also got a structural model. Maybe I'll unhide everything and let's hide that. Okay, so now that we've got our model here, we can click on the walk tool and just kind of walk around for a little bit if we want. See how easy it is to navigate here. But one of the features I wanted to show you was the ability to add in a hyperlink on certain objects. So if I were to click on this hyperlink on my sign here, I can have it take me out to a website. So that's one use for links. Let me find another one here. Let's walk around to the back of the building. Now you can see there's a lot of links in here. These are to other viewpoints in the model that have been saved. A lot of my saved viewpoints are all around here. And I can quickly access saved views from before. Let's just walk around to the back here. Take a quick look at some other hyperlinks I've got on here. So this is our back door here, loading dock. And oh, this door's got a link on it. If I hover over it, it says, oh, this will take you to the spec sheet. So when I click on it, it actually opens up a saved PDF. So if you have people out in the field or even during construction, you can link to cut sheets or spec sheets or any valuable information that you need. Here's one that's great too. Let's say this model is being used for facilities management, and you've got your maintenance crew in here. Maybe they're actually on site with their laptop or iPad, and they find this air handling unit, and they see, oh, here, there's a link for the maintenance records. Well, we could click on that, and I've got an Excel spreadsheet of my maintenance records for this HVAC system. Let's see what other tabs we have here. Maybe we've got an electrical panel, overhead door, and you can see all the maintenance records performed on the building. So let's say today, if I was going to do some work on this, I could put today's date in. And then say maybe this is just testing. And go ahead and save it and go about my business. All right, so that's one of my favorite things. The next one, this one, we're just going to get cooler and cooler as we go ahead here. The next one is the animator. So let's go back out to an exterior view here. All right, I'll turn my links off, get those out of the way. And the first type of animation that I was able to make were by grouping all of these viewpoints into a flyover folder. So if I can individually click on them and move around my building, but by adding them to this flyover folder, I can actually play this animation. So what the software does is it takes the viewpoints and stitches them together in a very seamless way. You can change the overall playback time to speed it up or slow it down. So we'll just let that go through and finish here. That's one of my favorite things to do with the animator. And that's very easy to do. You just create the viewpoints, save them, drag them, and drop them into a flyover folder. Very easy to do. Let's open up the actual animator window. And take a look here. So you can get a little more complicated with these. We can play some of these other ones. Let me play this one for you here. So I'll just play it and then I'll walk you through it. So here we go. Here's a animation. We're walking into the building. The doors are opening for us. We're getting inside the building. We're going to stop at this point, turn around, and look to see the doors closing and continue walking backwards so we can see those closing. Now, there's just a few simple components here. We created a camera, and as I move the slider, what I did was I captured a keyframe where I wanted it here at 0 time, move the slider to maybe at 7 seconds. I want to capture a frame here. So I just moved my camera and said at 7 seconds, I want my camera here. 13 seconds, camera here. 16 seconds, camera here. Turned around, and then camera's back here. And so by telling it, was it 4 or 5 different camera locations, it will stitch that all together for me and make it pretty seamless. But I took it one step further here and added an animation set for the inner and outer door to open. So as we're moving the slider, you see we get here, door is captured in its original location, but by the time we get to 6.5 seconds, it's completely open with this keyframe here. So if you keep your eye on the door, you can see it set in its normal position. By the time we get to 6.5 seconds, it's fully open. And in the meantime, the second door is going to start opening. And by the time the camera gets to it, it's in the fully open position. So I'll just play it again as we go through here. I was able to easily get the doors to close by taking this keyframe with the door open, copying it over here. So it'll stay open here. And then all I did was copy this keyframe over here to show it closed, and the software did the rest. It's almost automatic in a way. Very simple and easy to do. So that's a kind of a complex animation. We've got some other ones here. This one is pretty neat too. Let me show you this one because I'm going to use this for the scripter too. If you click on this, I'll just play it here. So what this does is it opens up the building. It literally lifts the whole roof off so you can see inside, stays up at the top for a little bit, and then starts to come back down. Again, just that same concept of capturing keyframes. This just does not have a camera associated with it. So at this point, I selected the roof, and it's captured it, and it's down position. It's 6 seconds, it's all the way up. 12 seconds still all the way up, and then 18 seconds all the way down. So the reason I created this raising the roof one is because I wanted to use it for my scripter. So what is the scripter? All right, well, let me show you that. Let's, yeah, you know what? I can close that and then enable scripts. What this does is it allows you to use an action to launch an animation. So in my case, if I press the up arrow key on the keyboard at any time, it will open up the building so I can see inside, rotate around, and then close back up for me. Very, very fun, cool stuff. So I'll show you underneath the hood a little bit here. Basically, this is the scripter tool. I created a new script, told it on key press to go up, and then play my animation. And I told it which animation. Very easy to do. Okay. All right. Now this next one is even more fun here. This one is the timeliner. So let's go ahead and bring that up. All right. Timeliner here. I'm just going to go ahead and run through one here to show you what it does, and then I'll circle back and kind of talk you through how it works. So we'll click play here. And hang on. Let's get a good view. There's a problem. I turned off the structural model. Sorry about that. Try that again. I'm going to move this out of the way so we can see the whole thing here. No, we'll just dock it, even better. Okay, so as our timeliner is playing here, it's just running a construction simulation and showing things being delivered to site under construction, shown in green. And by the time they're completed, they will show fully rendered. So this one was just to show the structure being built on site. Let me run through that again. So we've got the footings going in, shown in green because they've been started. Now the foundation walls in green, slab in green, now fully rendered because it's finished. Frame, and we did one bay at a time for dramatic effect. Probably could have done more of those at once. But let's take a look at the tasks here and see how that was done. So if I click on the tasks tool here, or tab, here's how the whole thing works. Basically, I added a task as a line item here, selected the objects that I wanted to be part of that, assigned them to this line item as a construct, and told it when the actual start and actual end of construction date were. And I did that for, so the footings, foundation, slab, and a line item for each bay. Now, if you have a construction scheduling software, you can bring that in, either Microsoft Project or Primavera. If you can save to any, like an MPX or a CSV, you can import those. So if you have like a Gantt schedule, you can import that, and those will be listed here as your tasks, and you'll have all of the dates lined up, and all you have to do is just assign which geometry goes to those line items, and you've pretty much got a simulation set here. A couple other things that are kind of fun on here. You can configure your constructs based on different appearances. You might remember mine was at the start of appearance was green, 90% transparent. By the end, it's full model appearance. So you can play around with these. You have lots of different options. And then on my simulation, you can change the overall time here. And look at this, there's something here for an animation. Well, remember that fly around we made? Well, whoa, let's see if we can work that into this. So when I click play here, we can use that animation at the same time as we're watching our timeliner. All right, so very fun. You can tell I had some fun doing this one. All right, so that brings us to the big topic of the day, and we're going to now take a look at the Clash Detective tool. So let's kind of clean up some of this stuff here. Open up our Clash Detective. So you can see we don't have anything set up. We're going to create one of these from scratch together here today. So briefly, what this does is it allows me to compare any model elements that I want against each other and check for clashes, whether it's steel versus piping, steel versus ductwork, and it could be more broad than that. Maybe I want to go ductwork versus walls. You really have the flexibility to do whatever you want here. So let's do this. Let's add a test. And maybe in our case, we'll just run the entire structural model versus the entire MEP model. Call it structure versus MEP. Now we need to set up some sort of criteria or the selections for what we're going to clash. So I'll do, for selection A, we'll just choose the entire structural model. You can drill in a little deeper and just pick specific things. But for this, we'll do the whole model, and I'll show you some pros and cons of that. And you have some options here. We're going to do surfaces, but you don't have to do that. And then we could do selection B is what we're going to be clashing it against. So we'll do the entire MEP model. couple other things before we run a first test here. Under the settings, we're looking for hard clashes with this is set as our tolerance. But there's other types here. You can have clearances, or even if you're looking for duplicate models, you have the ability to do that. So let's just run a test here. Let's do this. Okay, so good stuff here. We've got 7 clashes. Let's dock this so we can see what we're doing here. All right, so this is going to eat up a lot of real estate, so I apologize here. Typically, I would drag this clash detective to a dual monitor, but since I can only share one screen, we'll just do our best here. So actually, you know what? Let's pop it out. I'm okay with covering up our view. So let's check this out here. We've got 7 clashes. Red shows up as new, so it's the first time we ran it. So let's take a look at all these and see what we've got. All right, so clash 1 here. That looks like a piece of ductwork hitting our structure. We can't have that. So one thing we can do here is click the assign button and say, let's assign this to our HVAC designer. Maybe her name is Meg. We'll say, please move duct down. Thank you. And then we'll look at clash 2 here. When I click on it, it'll cycle through here. Oh, so when I'm looking through here, let's orbit around in our model. Okay, so this is going through the slab here. Now I know that this does not need to be addressed in my model. Let's say that I click on this, and instead of marking it as new, let's mark it as either reviewed or approved. Yeah, let's do approved here, and then look at the next one. So you can even add a comment if you wanted. I could say, ignore, noted in plan. Now, clash 3, it looks like it's the same thing, but again, that goes back to the fact that I clashed the whole model. And what we're having here is this pipe going through the analytical component of that slab. So maybe I'll just mark this as reviewed, and I can even say not a real clash. Now, when I look at clash 4, let's see, okay, let's zoom in a little bit. I've got this pipe hitting my steel. I click on the next one. It's kind of the same thing, but it's 1 bay down. So clash 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all because of this one pipe. So we can resolve that by moving one pipe. In that case, what I would do is group these all together, create a new group called sprinkler pipe. And then just try to drag these into that folder. And I can assign this one too. Let's say FP Design Engineer, Bob, please relocate pipe to 9'0" elevation. Thank you. Okay. All right, so now that we've got that, what do we do with this? Well, we can send out a clash report. We can choose what information we want on this. You can choose the format. We'll do an HTML version, but you can also save them as viewpoints in your file. So I'll just run it as an HTML. And let's see what that looks like here. All right, so let's take a look at this. Got a hard clash here. It's assigned to our HVAC design engineer. Here's my notes. Clash 2, this one's approved. This one is reviewed. And then this one shows up, our group shows up as one line item in here. All right, so what we would do is we'd send the report out with the files to the appropriate engineers. They would update their models and they would send it to us, and we would then have to rerun our clash. So we can simulate that workflow by going into my dataset folder here. And let's say the MEP engineers sent us a fixed model. So I'll copy that, Control C, and overwrite my model here. Now I'll refresh. This will take a second to rebuild. And we should get a little alert telling us that the model does not reflect our current clash. And then we will go ahead and rerun it. All right, so yeah, that's what this little warning says. So that means we need to rerun this. So we'll select that and go to results and rerun our test. All right, now that we've rerun this, we have no new clashes. That's good, that's a good thing. But we have an active clash in orange. That means that our HVAC designer has not fixed theirs yet. That's okay. We'll catch it in the next round. At least we caught it. Then again, these still show up as reviewed or approved. And then anything that's been resolved will show up in yellow. So it looks like our fire protection engineer moved the pipe down and it's no longer a clash. So we could then go ahead and run the report again, just for the heck of it. Let's see. So you can see this one is still showing up as active, and so on and so forth. This one is showing as resolved. All right. So let me take a look here. Hang on 1 second. Let's see. So make sure I didn't forget anything super important here. But yeah, I guess that's probably as much as I wanted to show for the Clash Detective today. So let's hop back into the PowerPoint here. And so those are some of my favorite things about Navisworks. And unfortunately, we didn't have enough time today to get to quantification and rendering. However, if you enjoyed what you've seen here today and would like to learn more about these topics, I would love to have you join us for our 2-day Navisworks new user course. We will learn how to do everything you've seen here today, plus a few things we didn't have time to show. We currently have one class scheduled for May 13th and 14th. Plus, we are always happy to add classes to the schedule if those dates don't work for you. You can let us know some dates that work, and we can add a class. Or, maybe you already have some experience with the software and a full-blown new user course doesn't seem like a good fit. Well, in that case, we can put together a half-day or a full-day custom class that is more focused on just the content you need. And if that sounds good, let us know. And myself and your sales rep would love to have a call with your team to discuss your needs. I thoroughly enjoy geeking out over this stuff, so please reach out. I would also mention you can always keep an eye out for the social media posts, blog, and email lists for relevant and useful, and best of all, free articles, tips, and videos. All right, so with that, I will open up the question panel and start taking a look at that. So if you didn't have a chance yet, please go ahead and locate the questions panel and ask away. I will go ahead and take a look at that now. All right. Okay, so one question here, the question reads, where are the files located, like the maintenance Excel file? So in that case, the file was located on my hard drive, but as long as I'm mapped to a network drive or location like that, I'd be able to find it. That wouldn't be a problem. Let's see what else here. All right, so I'll just keep the question box open here for another couple seconds or so. And if you did ask a question and I wasn't able to get back to you with an answer on that, I will be sure to follow up with an email. So don't be shy, go ahead and ask if you have a question. And yeah, all right. So last call, I'm not seeing too many more pop up here. All right. So yeah, I guess if nobody else had any other questions, I want to say I really appreciate everybody joining the webcast today. And okay, I did see one question here. It looks like okay, it looks like Jeff had a question about online training. I'm not 100% sure, but if you want to follow up with me on that, wants to know what training comes with your subscription. That I'm not sure. We'll have to circle back with your sales rep on that, but we'll be sure to follow up with you. So thanks again for attending, everybody, and have a great day.